passion for Formula One is at an all-time high, with record crowds, TV ratings and trading card sales. Matt Clarke has fused his love of cars and cards, putting him in pole position on the PSA rankings.
I definitely love fast cars. I've always been into cars and cards. Probably since I was a teenager have always been part of my life. Yeah, they're both the two hobbies that I'm most passionate about. Friends and family probably don't understand it all that much. I think it's more mainstream now than it was 10, 15 years ago. It was people sort of hid their collections. I was probably one of them. A lot of my friends didn't know that I collected or how heavily I collected. Because Adelaide had the Formula One Grand Prix, from a very young age I was a Ayrton Senna fan. He always seemed to be up the top of the podium, he was always winning. He was my first Formula One driver that I followed and was passionate about.
This is my Ayrton Senna collection. Ranges from the early 80s through to the mid 90s. A lot of international and European version stickers and cards. You got the 91 Pro Tracks, 92 Grid Formula One, and then the Australian Futura sets and later.
I probably started collecting Senna cards when I realised what was out there. In total, he's got less than 100 cards from when he started in the early 80s up until early 2000s. And I just wanted everything in the highest grade possible. On the PSA Set Registry, I've got the #1 Ayrton Senna collection in the world. Some of the key cards in my Senna collection is the 1994 Futura tribute card. There's only 500 of those made. When I was trying to acquire that card, I couldn't find a copy anywhere, but I actually found there was a seller on eBay that had some sealed boxes. The whole goal was just to try and find the Senna tribute card. I didn't really care about any other cards in the packs. I opened the 3 boxes, was really disappointed that I didn't pull one. Put them all in a box, put them under the bench, and then just left them there for about 2 years. Pulled out the box, started sifting through, and within the first handful of cards, stuck to another card almost, was the Senna tribute card, which had been under my bench for 2 years. Pulled it out, sent it to PSA, came back a PSA 9, which is the highest grade copy in the world. As well as my Senna collection, I'm a very big collector of Boston Celtics cards and memorabilia. Larry Bird was the first player I ever collected. I was more drawn to the style of play that the team played. They weren't flashy, it was more just about winning. Obviously they had a strong history of winning championships, and that's all the team really cared about. I mainly focus on key cards and key players and key sets. I'd rather have quality over quantity. With modern cards, I try and make sure all the autographs that I collect are on card as opposed to the sticker autographs. Much rather the fact that the players held the card in hand as opposed to signing a sticker and sticking it on the card. Certain players, I might only have 10 cards, but I'd rather have 10 quality cards than 100 mid-level cards. I'd like to have the best of the best. Like Tatum, I've got 2 Tatum cards. Select Black, 1 of 1, and I've got one of his rookie select autograph cards. I've got some of the Jaylen Brown's best cards. I've got his National Treasures rookie. I've got multiple 1 of 1s, patch cards, autograph cards. I try and just stick with the quality. The modern stuff's pretty cool, but I think what's more impressive is my vintage basketball collection.
Half a decade ago, card collectors had no idea how much condition would play a part in the values in years to come. Many kept their cards wrapped in rubber bands or stored loosely in shoeboxes. That's why vintage cards in pristine condition today bring a premium.
I've been a Celtics fan probably since I started collecting basketball cards in the early 90s. I attended the National Sports Collectors Convention in the US. Before that, I hadn't really been exposed to vintage cards in Australia because no one really has that sort of stuff. And I was instantly drawn to the history of them, and over the next few years the goal was just to obtain one of each copy. I wasn't super concerned about the grade, it was just I wanted a clean copy of each card. Once I acquired one of everything, I started to look at the grades and go, oh, I want a higher grade. So this is my main Boston Celtics collection. We've got vintage starting from 1948 Bowman through the 60s, 70s, 80s, mid-80s with the Star Company cards, and then all the way through to the modern cards. They're almost like antiques. When they were produced, they were marketed as a gimmick for mainly collected by kids. Most of them just got rubber bands around them, they got thrown in shoe boxes. So to find them in perfect condition it's near impossible. They weren't designed to be preserved. Anything pre-1980 was relatively scarce. Compared to baseball cards, the basketball cards were almost non-existent. In vintage, grades matter tremendously. The higher the grade, obviously the more value, but the difference between an 8 and a 9 and a 9 and a 10 can be exponential. You might have an 8 that's worth $100, a 9 that's worth $500, but if a 10 comes up, depending on how many there are, the 10 might be $20,000. My goal is just to have every Boston Celtics card in the highest grade possible, which is quite difficult because there's quite a few copies out there which there is a 10 or a 9 where there's only one copy graded that grade in the world. The oldest NBA specific product that had basketball cards was the 1948 Bowman. They're smaller than a standard regular issue card, and they're made obviously from cardboard that was used at the time, so they're very brittle, they're very prone to not being in good condition. These are the 1957 Topps set. Contains key rookies of Bob Cousy and Bill Russell. The 1961 Fleer, I've got every card in a PSA 9. Some players do have 10s. Bill Russell only has 9s. There's no 10s out there. I've got the base portrait card and he has an in-action subset card. I've got those both in a PSA 9, which is the highest grade that card's ever been graded. My favourite design is probably the 1971 Topps. The font and the look of the cards is very retro. I've got the 1971 Dave Cowens rookie card in a PSA 10. It's the only copy graded 10 in the world. I remember the auction ending and my heart sank because then I realised I had to pay for this card. The most valuable card that I'd have would be the 1957 Topps Bill Russell rookie card. I've got that in a PSA 7. The 7 that I acquired is worth roughly $75,000. Vintage sports cards can be a better investment than some stocks, shares, things like that. The price increases in some of the higher grades, 5 to 10x what I originally paid for the cards.